evening to everyone. I am Jarold and I shall be your presenter. So when we look at our agenda, we have our first topic, which is CAPS related background to process writing stages, differences between essay and transactional writing requirements, discursive essay friend, discursive essay and friendly letter, benefits of teaching writing as a process, challenges of process approach. So what does a CAPS document say about the process writing? So first of all, the CAPS document on page 35 defines writing as a powerful instrument of communication that allows learners to construct and communicate thoughts and ideas coherently. Frequent writing practice across a variety of contexts, tasks, and subjects enables learners to communicate functionally and creatively. Writing is important because it enables learners to think about grammar and spelling. And as we move over to the next slide, we have process writing stages. So the process writing stages are actually made of 6 different stages. And as we can see there at the bottom, the different stages are as follows. The pre-writing stage, drafting, revising, editing, and publishing. So the first stage is the planning or pre-writing stage. So in the planning or pre-writing stage, it actually involves activities such as figuring out the purpose and the audience. So writers actually find out why are they writing the letter, and secondly, to whom is the letter addressed, like to who are they writing to. So also in this stage, brainstorming and analyzing the form is also taking place. So learners think, come up with ideas, and they analyze the form in the sense of how is the writing structured, if there's a specific format, for instance, and they think about that critically to be able to produce proper and quality work. So drafting is our next stage. So drafting involves the process of actually placing the ideas into words. So here is where we first see the learners actually writing down all their written, all their thought ideas and putting it into words, categorizing them, breaking them up into paragraphs, coming up with headings for each paragraph, and they actually divide all these ideas into the different sections. And what else also happens in the drafting stage is that the process also includes where writers choose the words, the type of register they're going to use, they organize their ideas, and they use sentences that are fluent. Other things that also can happen in the drafting stage is breaking up of ideas and headings, which are also very important in this stage. So revising is our third stage. So revising is very important as learners have to go back to see if everything is in order. So they go and track back. Activities that involved in this revising stage are actually to clarify certain concepts, to reorganize certain ideas, information, refining ideas and sentences, changing, removing, or adding certain concepts. So it is always best to go check back and see if everything is in order. And as we move over to the next slide, which is continued, and then the fourth stage is editing. So editing involves activities of checking punctuation. There we can see example of some punctuation marks, full stop, commas, and the other thing they check for is spelling. So there's a little example of there or there. So there it's either the one where you show reference to a place or reference to a group of people. So it's always best to check which spelling is correct. So editing involves checking spelling and punctuation. Other activities also include checking grammatical errors or inaccuracies and the use of contractions. So in formal writing, contractions are not allowed, so we cannot use the words he is or won't. So learners must also be aware of that, to go and check if they use any contractions and to change them before submitting the final draft. And then we have proofreading. So proofreading is used to check if all sentences are complete. So proofreading is to double check the work to see whether everything is in place before submission. So it is always best to check again if everything is fine, if everything is sound, before actually moving on to our last stage, which is presenting. So presenting is the final stage in the writing process. The presenting stage involves rewriting everything correctly and neatly to be able to submit the final written piece. So it is very important to double check to make sure before submitting. And another good way, if it is maybe possible, is to maybe ask someone else to double check, to check if everything is fine, to proofread it in stage 5. If you are allowed to hand your work to someone else to check and edit it for you, and presenting represents the final stage, which is where you submit your final written piece. So our next slide deals with the differences between essay and transactional writing requirements. So essay requirements, the essay format consists of 3 sections, which is the introduction, the body, and conclusion. So in the introduction, we're introduced to the topic, what we'll be dealing with. The thesis statement is also included, where the learner or the writer includes what the essay will actually discuss, what we'll find throughout the essay. The body is broken up into paragraphs, whereby each paragraph has got a different heading, topic found within each paragraph. So that is where all the key information lays in. And then conclusion is the ending off of the essay, whereby everything is summarized. We discuss everything from over, and no new information is included in that conclusive paragraphs. Okay. And then the essays are divided into 5 types, namely narrative, descriptive, reflective, discursive, which we will deal with later. We'll deal with the discursive one a little bit later, and argumentative. And so we move on to transactional. So unlike essay writing, transactional writing is based on real life experiences and it is factual. The texts are exchanged between the writer and the audience. So there's an exchange happening. There's a transfer between from the writer towards the audience. So that is where it actually gets its name, transactional writing, because there's a transaction taking place. So transactional texts include letters, reports, diary entries, dialogues, reviews, and each of these respective written pieces or texts have their own format or structure, which we will also deal with a little bit later. Just a little bit of an example. When it comes to letters, we have an informal letter and we have a formal letter. The informal letter only uses the writer's address. The formal letter actually uses the writer's address and the audience or the person or company that the writer is actually writing to. So there's 2 addresses when it comes to formal, and informal only uses the writer's address, which is 1 address. So discursive essay. So a discursive essay is objective and aims to give a balanced view of both sides of an argument. So as we can see in the little picture there at the bottom, there's a little bit of a scale there. And on the left, we see argumentative, whether one side is heavier than the other side. But the discursive scale is actually balanced out. So the writer gives an account for both sides of the story. They back up their argument or give both criticism or praise if it's asked in that type of sense. The writer considers various aspects of the topic under discussion and presents both opposing views impartially. So that is very important. The process writing approach is implemented through the fact that learners must account for both views upon a certain topic. So it is very important when it comes to process writing when you select the discursive essay, because learners will have to think logically and break up their essay or written piece into two sections. So there's a little bit of example. So you have strengths, so learners will have to think of strengths, and then we have weaknesses, so learners will have to think of weaknesses and provide ideas and thoughts and write paragraphs based on that. So it is very important for the writing process or writing process approach when it comes to discursive essay, because learners actually write down the different views or perspectives upon a certain topic or concept. So this will also enable them to plan thoroughly and list all positives and negatives based on a certain concept and be able to put those thoughts and ideas into words. So that also contributes to the writing process approach, which is very important. So let's move over to the friendly letter. As we can see there's in the image. So the friendly letter takes up the writer's address on the right-hand side of the page. Then it starts with the salutation or the greeting, dear, and I see there's a little bit of an example, dear Aunt Rita. And just skip a line below that. Then you start with the introduction, briefly stating the purpose of the letter. Skip another line, the body, depending on the number of paragraphs. And then the conclusion is the last paragraph there. Another skip a line, and then your closing, which is sincerely yours, and then the writer's name and the signature. Let us move on to a friendly letter. So a friendly letter is informal and is written to people such as family or friends. So as we mentioned, a friendly letter is informal letter, so it will only take up one address, and learners must be aware of this, as it will be a little bit trickier when you write in a formal letter, which takes up two addresses. So it's the writer's address and the receiver's address. So, but for now, a friendly letter is informal, so it only uses the writer's address. So a conversational tone may be used, but not slang words. So the writer can write in a way of expressing themselves through conversation, which is very important for a letter. A friendly letter is used to express emotions, so it is used to congratulate or to sympathize, to ask for advice. The informal letter only contains one address as mentioned, so it is the writer's address and the date that the letter is written. So the process writing approach is implemented through the fact that learners must actually be able to express themselves through words, giving account for the situation. So in this case, learners might have to write to a friend or a family member where they congratulate this person. So they have to actually put their feelings into words, saying they are so proud of this person and they're so happy that this person achieved uh, whatever the case may be. And it is very important for writers to actually, or learners in the sense, to be able to express themselves through their letters to give an account of the specific situation. So they must also imagine and envision themselves talking to the audience, but only through written words. So that is very important. So at the end of the day, writers must be able to imagine that they are speaking towards this audience or to whoever they are writing to, and envision that they are actually having a conversation with this person through this written piece. So, benefits of teaching writing as a process. So, Paraday 2016 describes the writing process as the way of breaking down the task of writing into smaller parts or components. According to him, there are four benefits to teaching writing as a process. So, the first one is the pre writing or planning stage, which we mentioned previously, helps learners to map out ideas and organize all these ideas to be able to architect their work before actually start putting pen to paper. So it is very important to follow the writing process or process writing as learners plan ahead so that they don't just start writing based on a topic and just write everything in one big paragraph. So it is always best to break up and plan which paragraph is going to cater for which heading, the different idea of the paragraphs and all of that. So that is very important. The writing process helps learners structure and label their writing, which makes writing very easy and helps the reader also to understand. So it is very important for learners to use the writing process as it allows them to structure their written piece, not just write a big blob of words and at the end of the day, it might not be relevant, it might not even be to a level of understanding. So it is very important for learners to be able to structure and label their writing, which makes writing very easier for them and also easier for the reader to understand what is going on. Thirdly, the writing process helps learners envision goals for their produce and be able to set standards as to what and how they want their work to look like and how they are going to achieve these goals they set for their written work. So it is very important for learners to actually imagine how they're going to structure everything and how their end product is going to look like, to plan ahead and be able to set standards for them. Because at the end of the day, it is their work, it is what they want to achieve, and to see if they will be able to achieve those type of standards that they set out for themselves. This is also a motivation for them to work towards something, to be able to achieve something. And then fourthly, learners also have the benefit of criticizing their own work to be able to do better and improve on their writing so that they may work harder and produce quality work. So it is very important for learners to use this as they go track back and criticize their own work to see if everything is in place, where they can do better, where they can improve, so that at the end of the day, it will benefit them to be able to produce better quality work and improve their writing skills as well. So, challenges of process approach. So, the process approach, according to the CAPS document, is used when learners read and produce oral or written texts. So, there are actually four challenges of the process approach. The first one is the process approach is reliant on many different units. If there is a challenge in one unit, for example, reading, it will lead to challenges in other units like writing, speech, or listening. That is very important because these units are interrelated, they depend on one another. So if a learner cannot read, there is a big chance it will affect the other units, such as the writing skills, speech, and even perhaps listening. So there is a little bit of a challenge when it comes to the process approach, as the parts or the units are interrelated. And if there's a challenge in one of the units, it might affect the other units as well. The approach focuses a great amount of time on the writing process, which may result in less time being spent on other important areas such as developing speech, listening, and reading. So it is a very time strenuous activity to be able to focus on writing, and sometimes we might not be able to fulfill the other criteria of the curriculum and focus on the other aspects of developing skills such as speech and listening. So it is very difficult to teach the process approach as it requires a lot of time and effort. So that is also one of the challenges that we experience with process approach. Thirdly, limited resources is another challenge of the process approach. So not all learners have access to specific resources such as writing material, technology, for research purposes and editing. So it is very difficult because each and everyone does not come from a wealthy background. There's always money involved, and not every learner might be able to have access to these type of resources, study materials, and all of that. So to teach a process approach is very difficult as some learners might receive a researchable topic to write upon, and not each and every learner might be able to have research material to be able to look up and find information upon the topic at hand. Okay. So with regards to AI these days, some learners who have access to AI have an advantage over others who are not able to use this platform, which contributes a lot to the challenge of limited resources when it comes to the process approach. So the process approach is a generalized approach which treats all learners with the same criteria and not subjectively based on culture and learner background. So unfortunately, the process approach, it treats each and every learner the same. They do not take into account that learners are subjective, that they have different backgrounds, that they have different upbringing, that they do not come from different houses or homes. So the challenge in this actually lays in the fact that not all learners have had that exposure to the English language, and not all learners have the same proficiency or fluency in the language. So that is a little bit of a problem. And some learners might have difficulty expressing their ideas through a written platform. There's many a times where a learner might do so well in their orals or their speeches, and then when it comes to written work, then they lack a little bit, or they struggle a little bit to express themselves through written work. But when it comes to oral and all of that, they actually excel and they do very well, but sometimes have challenges when it comes to written pieces. So there we have our reference list, and that is it from me. So thank you, everyone. um, I am Jarold Alexander, and I thank you for listening. Goodbye.